Look, I'll continue to emphasize the key points here. We believe we've got the most advanced ex-China option for cost-competitive LFP. We're scaling that technology. We believe there's going to be clarity on commercial sales in 2025, and our licensing model and the work we're doing with Worley activities, those are going to start to bear fruit.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Alex Holmes. He's the Chief Operating Officer for Nano One Materials Corp. And Alex, good to have you back again. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Steve. Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, good to have you along. A really interesting news release out from the company talking about your building and property that you own in Quebec, and you basically have signed a deal to sell that off. But the reason you're doing it actually makes a great deal of sense. So why don't you sort of give us the news here as what's happening?
Sure. So look, long story short, I think this is a really smart move to capitalize on an unnecessary asset on our balance sheet. It totally aligns with our recent shareholder letter we put out about 2025 catalysts. I think one of the things that's important to keep in mind is, we're a technology company pursuing a capital light business model. We purchased this building in 2022 for 10.25 million, when really what we wanted was the experience of the team and the use of the equipment at the end of the day. And so now we've turned around over the last kind of 4 or 5 months, sold that for more than 20 million. That's good business sense, right? That's a more than a 2 times return on our capital that still allows us to execute on our business plans.
Yeah, because you've signed a long-term lease, so you've got the equipment, you've got all the things that you need in order to get to the next stage of where you want to go, and it also gives you some financial runway as well by adding this money in.
Yeah, and I think that's another key point to hit home with our shareholders is, if we think about the approximately 40 million that we secured from government funding in 2024, that is for funding over the next couple of years. What this capital does is it unlocks that funding and gives us that financial runway through 2025 and into 2026. And so it allows us to continue executing on the business plan. As a shareholder myself, I think this is important, but also to all our shareholders. This allows us to remove some, dilutive equity raise in a very challenging small cap market until the opportunity is right. So I think this gives us a lot of good financial flexibility to see us through this year.
Yeah. So what will this year look like? Give people an idea of what's happening now that you've got this sort of out of the way, and you know that the financing is in place for the rest of this year and into some of next as well.
Yeah. So look, I'll continue to emphasize the key points here. We believe we've got the most advanced ex-China option for cost-competitive LFP. We're scaling that technology. We believe there's going to be clarity on commercial sales in 2025, and our licensing model and the work we're doing with Worley activities, those are going to start to bear fruit. These are all things we recognize our shareholders are looking for, and we're laser focused on those items.
Yeah. And lastly, just on the business as a whole, you obviously have secured yourself where you're at financially, which is very important. You feel like you've got the right team in place now. Is this accelerate you now towards that commercialization part that you've talked about in the past? And you just sort of mentioned there about the partners you're working with, but it sounds like things are now ready to take that lightning speed step next.
Yeah, I think, look, we have critical know-how on the team. That is super important. This transaction, we keep all the equipment. We've got long-term use of the building. We can expand our plant to north of 1,000 tons per annum with non-dilutive capital. And, I think what's often lost on kind of people is that our Candiac facility is a demo plant. That's a demonstration plan of our technology in production intent, commercial scale equipment. This is not a small pilot plant. And so that's often overlooked, and that's a massive value proposition as we engage with licensees looking to our technology. It completely stands us apart, right? It puts us ahead of the curve, ahead of the pack. And the nice thing about Candiac is it also gives us an LFP sales kicker, right? At the end of the day, we're engaging with customers for commercial sales. So it's got a number of, Nano One as a whole, we have a number of value propositions that our partners are looking for. And I think today's announcement is just another step in the right direction that helps us continue on pace.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Alex, for sure. Thanks very much. Good to get an update from you, and appreciate your time.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Take care.
All right. Alex Holmes, Chief Operating Officer for Nano One Materials Corp.